I watched Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. Better watch out. Okay, everybody, so I'm gonna try to make this as entertaining as possible because Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, Better Watch Out is boring as fuck. Oh my god. So it starts out with a young woman or a teenage girl, I'm not quite sure, named Laura, who's in a sleep study because she has psychic powers, and she's psychically connected to Richard from Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. And this movie is full on Billy erasure. Like, we don't even with the Billiness. She's in this dream, and initially she wakes up inside the dream, and Richard is in the coma, and it shows his fucking brain is just out like evil con carne. But then he like wields a scalpel and she's running away, and then Santa's there, and then Santa has a knife. And then she wakes up in the sleep study, and the doctor's like, tell me about your dream, you know, doing the complete opposite of what anybody else would do.
I don't want to hear about your dreams, okay? I hate listening to people's dreams. It's like flipping through a stack of photographs. If I'm not in any of them, nobody's having sex, I don't care.
And she's like, I just dreamt of Santa, and I dreamt that I could see. And that's when we learn that Laura is blind. The doctor's name is Dr. Newberry, and 17 minutes into the film, I just wrote my notes, what the fuck is this film doing? They went from 2 slasher movies to let's add paranormal element to it for no fucking reason. So it's like Christmas break for the study or whatever, and Laura's leaving, and when she's leaving, she's like, I don't know if I want to continue on with this study. She also tells him where she's going for winter break, because of course she does. And then when she leaves, the doctor says some creepy-ass predator sounding shit.
I think that she's playing little girl games. Her body may be young, but her soul is old.
And then she'll let me go as deep as I want.
She likes it, loves it, knowledge.
There's a uselessly long scene of her waiting in the waiting room for her brother to pick her up right after she asks the receptionist to watch out if her brother's getting there. The receptionist is like, I'm fucking busy. And it's like, yeah, of course she is. Why is she gonna look outside every 5 minutes for your brother's red Jeep? Why the fuck wouldn't he come in to get you? Like, that makes more sense. So while we're wasting time in the scene where she's waiting in the waiting room for her brother, she slips into a dreamlike state and then sees the receptionist with her throat slit because apparently doing your job and being busy is a sin. Her brother gets there and wakes her up and escorts her outside, and when they're going outside, the receptionist is like, da-da-da-da, Merry Christmas. Laura says, not for you, because she's a snarky fucking asshole who had never had to be a receptionist before and doesn't realize how much fucking work that woman has to do in a day. But she should throw down all of her shit to make sure that she gets up to walk over to look out the window to check if a red Jeep is there when fucking Laura's dumbass brother knows that Laura can't see when he gets there. So then the siblings get in the car, and Laura makes a really fucking weird goddamn sexual joke to her brother. She brings attention to her crotch. But who am I to say that's fucking weird? What's a awkwardly visual sexual joke between siblings besides uncomfortable and disgusting? So then those two idiots fuck off, and then we're shown a fake Santa making his rounds around the hospital and makes his way into Richard's room and makes like, haha, let's drink. But you can't because you're a vegetable because he's in a coma, get it? And then Richard, of course, wakes up and then kills him. Laura is then at her psychologist talking about psychic abilities and all this other stuff. Whew! And these, whoa boy, the acting is so fucking boring in this scene. I honestly stopped listening. And then the psychologist turns the chair around and it's Richard instead of the psychologist. Shocking. But where Richard really is in the hospital killing that receptionist. Then Chris introduces his girlfriend to his sister. I wrote down Cheryl, but then later in the film, it sounds like they're saying Jerry, so her name is either Cheryl or Jerry. Either way, it doesn't fucking matter. So their introduction goes awkwardly because Cheryl Jerry reaches her hand out to shake Lauren's hand. Laura, I guess, knows that that's what she's doing, and Laura says, like, I never shake on the first date. And then Chris says something about you should see her when she's actually mad or whatever. Cheryl Jerry says, like, compliments Laura on something, and then Cheryl Jerry says, like, yeah, my brother says you give good head. And then Cheryl Jerry comes back with,
I'm good with my hands, too.
ooh, Then we're shown that Richard and Laura are psychically linked because Laura and Chris and Cheryl Jerry are talking about which way to go to their grandma's house. Laura says out loud, no, we'll take this route to this route because that's the route we always take. And then it's shown that Richard overheard that. He's out of the psych ward or the hospital or wherever he is, and he's on the road, and then he starts hitchhiking to go the way that Laura says. And then Cheryl Jerry starts up an inappropriate conversation with Laura asking when she became handicapped. And then it's the third movie of Silent Night, Deadly Night, so you know what the fuck they did? They reused footage from the first Silent Night, Deadly Night. I'm not even kidding. Repackaged in a new movie just for you to see it fucking again. Billy then hitchhikes and kills the kind person who gives him a ride. Then a gas station person is taking a dirty phone call from somebody, and he has to go pump gas for the car that Ricky's now driving, and he doesn't come back because Richard has killed him too. They just show the phone off the hook, and like you can hear like the person on the other line talking nasty. After that, it just shows the screen of a movie that's playing that's probably a better movie than this movie. Then we're shown Granny who's cooking a turkey in the oven, and this scene goes on for a very long time too. Laura and the group are at the gas station that Greg just got murdered at, but they don't see Greg. Greg doesn't show up. They don't have to go in for gas, even though it was shown before to be one of those you have to have the attendant pump. The grandmother predicts that the phone is gonna ring, and it does, and it's them saying, hey, we're almost there or whatever. And this is like a little clip to show us that Granny also has the gift that Laura has. This gift does not matter at all. Like, it is honestly just a way to shoehorn Richard into a story for no fucking reason. But then I guess the next part is showing that the gas station attendant Greg is decapitated, and Richard put his head in front of a TV and right next to the phone. So the detectives are finally at the hospital, and they're asking questions about Ricky, and at first it seems like they're just a bunch of dumbass cops. They're like, who was this guy? But then it turns out the elderly cop man on the job is like, I was there when we shot him to death. We blew half his face off. And it's like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. So honestly, this is the third fucking movie. And after watching the second one and then this one, obviously, I am shocked at how the people who did the second and third movies were able to use parts of the first movie, but then write shit like this that make it seem like they didn't see any of the fucking movies. What? Oh, and then the next scene is Grandma being a fucking moron and letting Ricky into the house like a stranger that doesn't say a fucking word to you. Like, come into my house and I'll feed you, it's fine. Then there's a scene with the detective and the doctor in a car together, and the doctor is explaining to the detective, like he's 5 years old, how psychic abilities may or may not work. And there's speculation that Laura has touched Ricky's soul. Back at Grandma's house, Ricky is looking at pictures. And Grandma's like, those are my grandkids and they're on their way. And then this is where Ricky kills Grandma, because of course he fucking does. So Laura, Chris, and Cheryl Jerry get to Grandma's house, and they're like, where the fuck is Grandma? And instead of worrying, Cheryl, Jerry, and Chris start making out and like almost fuck in front of Laura. And Laura's like, knock it off, you two. Something real serious is happening. And then they're like, yeah, cool, I'm gonna give Cheryl Jerry the tour of the house. So Chris does that. Laura has like a psychic out and sees like Granny for a minute. Chris then like comes and says some shit to her and then checks on like the food situation. And then also Cheryl's taking a bath upstairs. Then Chris and Laura have a drink together. Then Chris goes upstairs and takes a bath with Cheryl, Jerry. Then the doctor and the detective are having a fucking annoying ass conversation in the car on their way to somewhere. Eventually they are going to be on their way to where Laura, Chris, and Cheryl Jerry are. After their bath, Chris and Cheryl Jerry go looking for Grandma outside. They like go to one of the houses nearby because Grandma lives on an orange farm and the houses nearby are the workers, so they try to knock on their doors to see if the grandma is there, and she is not. We're also shown a lot of footage of another movie that is playing that Laura is listening to, I guess. Then the doctor and detective are having more conversations about shit I don't care about. Then Chris and Laura make up for no reason, and right here I wrote, there's only 20 more minutes left, hang in there. This is the part where Chris says that we can wait 15 more minutes for Grandma to show up, even though they got there, noticed she wasn't there, gave Cheryl Jerry the tour of the house, then checked up on the kitchen situation, then took a bath with Cheryl Jerry, and then now you're downstairs, all dried off, and you're like, we can wait 15 more minutes. It's like probably 10 p.m. Your grandma should be home. She's dead if she's not home yet. what the fuck are you doing? Also, at some point in this scene, it's noted that Chris's car is missing, so Chris and Cheryl go back outside to find his car. They find the car flipped upside down, and that is the moment when Chris is like, call the cops. Because my car is flipped upside down, not because our grandma's been missing for the last, 3 hours. The detective and the doctor make it to the gas station, and they find the crime scene, and the doctor states that Red triggers his childhood trauma. Then the doctor does an insufferable monologue, and off to Chris and Laura's grandmother's house they go. Laura reveals some shit about Richard to Chris and Cheryl Jerry. Cheryl Jerry is standing at the front door, and while she's doing that, Richard punches through the door and starts choking her. And then just the most boring fucking reactions to the front goddamn door being punched in, and then your girlfriend being choked by a random person's hand. First of all, a front door is not easily punched in, so you should immediately be terrified. He just tries to yank at his hand or his arm and nothing happens, and then so he gets a knife and it just goes. So then the detective and the doctor are having this fucking boring ass conversation about the doctor's don't kill him, and the detective's I'm gonna, if I can get to, I'm gonna do it. I'm a cop, I'm going to. And the doctor's but he's the cure. He's the snake venom to cure people of snake bites. That metaphor. Because if you can study a serial spree killer, then you can cure other serial spree killers. The detective leaves the car to go pee, and the doctor drives off with the car because he doesn't want the detective to kill Ricky. I also forgot to point out that in that conversation, the doctor totally says, everyone's guilty of something. And it's dude, shut the fuck up. Fuck you. Shut the fuck up. Chris goes upstairs and finds a shotgun, comes back downstairs, and I just put in my notes that Laura is a bitch, and I'm not quite sure what she did, but yes, she is a fucking bitch. Then the gang's outside at night because the safest place to be when a killer is chasing you in one of these movies is to go outside in the dark. That's where you want to be, where you can't fucking see shit. So while they're outside, Richard jumps on Chris and gets the gun away and then stabs Chris, and then the two women run away, and at that time the doctor shows up and starts playing the tape of Laura waking up from the beginning of the movie and talks some shit and walks towards Richard, and eventually they hold hands and they get closer, and then Richard just stabs the doctor because of fucking course he does. Laura and Cheryl Jerry get into the house, and Laura's oh my god, Chris, he's all I had, blah blah blah. But you also had your grandma, so I mean, okay. Cheryl Jerry's I loved him too. Laura's I'm sorry I was a bitch. Also, there's another gun in the house that my grandfather had, and Cheryl Jerry's I'm gonna go find it. But when Cheryl Jerry goes to find it, she gets yanked underneath the bed, and of course she's killed by Richard. Laura gets bored of waiting for Cheryl Jerry to get back, so she goes and looks for her, and she goes in a room and sits on a bed and touches Cheryl Jerry's dead body, and she's oh no. And then also Richard's in the room, and Laura goes up to Richard and touches his face and then screams and runs away. And here's where I wrote, there's 13 more minutes left. We can do this. Laura has escaped, but she ran directly into the basement.
Fighting in the basement offers a lot of difficulties. Number one being, you're fighting in the basement.
Richard passes the basement door, but Laura quickly gives herself up by touching a rat and screaming about it. Granny has become a force ghost and tells Laura to use the force. Use her force powers for good, to help her and to help others. How does she use her powers? Well, guess what? She fucking doesn't. So after the force ghost scene, Laura's just kind of Granny, I know you're in here. I can feel you around me. And then she walks directly into her grandma's corpse. Laura also finds a pool cue and uses it to defend herself, and also uses it to knock the light out in the basement. She knocks the light out and is now the playing field is level or whatever. So I seem to have lost the will to continue to do notes because I just wrote, I'll let this talk for itself. Oh cool, Chris is still alive and makes this super neat evergreen joke.
Is it live or is it Memorex?
He then shoots Richard with the shotgun, and Richard gets pushed backwards, like in the movie before. And then Richard gets back up and I guess chokes Chris to death with the shotgun. Then Laura has the broken pool cue, and she's laying in a bed of boxes, and she says, "Come here, Richard," and he does. And then he purposely falls into the pool cube, impaling himself, and the monster is killed. Laura crawls over to her brother and is like, "I love you." The detective finally arrives, and when he gets on the scene, he sees the doctor there who was still alive, and this is the whole fucking reaction he has.
Give me a call sometime, Doc.
What? There's call an ambulance? Maybe try to stop the bleed? What are you doing? Listen, I know how it be, but you could at least pretend to write cops how they're supposed to act. None of these fucking fantasy cops are even written like an ounce of like, pretend they're good guys. They're all just like, then that cop finds Laura in the basement, and I'm low-key surprised that he didn't just shoot her right there and then so he didn't have to deal with any witnesses, because what a fucking asshole that guy is. What a fucking asshole everybody in this movie is. What a fucking asshole this movie is. The ambulance team brings out a body that's covered like it's dead, and then they say this?
Call ahead to intensive care to set up life support. With a little luck, we can save this guy.
But, like, if the person was able to be resuscitated, why would you cover their entire body? Like, do I really have to tell you how I felt about this fucking movie? I hated this movie. This movie sucked. It was so fucking boring. All of the characters were unlikable. Maybe all of the characters being unlikable is a little harsh. Like, Chris was fine. Granny was fine. Otherwise, all the other characters were super unlikable. Laura was such a bitch, and Richard, obviously, bitch. Detective, doctor, bitches. I hated it. Laura having the psychic ability for essentially no reason other than to shoehorn her in or Richard in to the story. Because it's like, use your power, but then she doesn't use her power because unless, was that her using her power when he, like, willfully, like, just leaned into the broken pool cue? Like, what the fuck are we talking about here? Okay, so I think we all know where I think Silent Night, Deadly Night, Better Watch Out, the third one, deserves to be on the ranking list. So is there too much in the trailer? So the trailer has like 1.5 kills. I only say half of a kill because it shows when Chris initially gets stabbed, but we know later on in the film that he's not actually dead. It has 1.5 kills out of 7 total kills from the movie. So obviously there is not too much in the trailer. I wouldn't have watched it if I saw that trailer either before I saw the movie and before I decided to do a franchise review. If I had seen that trailer, I would have been like, no, hard pass. This movie truly sucked, and it was truly not fun to watch at all. I thought it added elements that didn't need to be there, the whole psychic ability thing. Coma patient thing as well. I don't know really what they were going for. I thought it sucked. I thought it deviated from the original formula of someone having a tragic Christmas time and being traumatized by a Santa situation and then having to punish people for it. It deviated from that, and by deviated, I mean it completely abandoned that. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching my suffering, and if you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you've seen this movie, or for some god-awful reason plan on seeing this movie, let me know in the comments below. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe. All my subscribers, thank you guys so much for allowing me to do this for an audience. Well, that's it for Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, Better Watch Out, and you better fucking watch out for Silent Night, Deadly Night 4 when I do that one. I will see you guys in that one. Thanks again. Bye! So, then there's like a pew cue. Oh, fuck. It's so lame. Yay.